Approaching Earth for repairs, we were restored, equipped, and the war changed forever. The cruiser floated silently through the cold emptiness of space. Its hull was scarred and dented, blackened by battle, and its engines hummed weakly. The crew had been through months of non-stop fighting, and now most of the ship's systems were barely working. Captain Daniel Brooks stood at the bridge, staring out at the stars. His eyes were tired, but his mind could not rest. He knew the ship and its crew were in danger, and every moment of delay could mean the end. Beside him, Commander Laura Bennett checked the status screens. Her fingers moved over the touch panels with careful precision. "Life support is holding at 38%, she said. "If we don't get repairs soon, we won't last another cycle." Daniel nodded slowly. "How far are we from the nearest friendly station?" Laura shook her head. "All the repair yards in our sector were destroyed months ago. We don't have a safe place anywhere nearby." Daniel pressed his hand to his forehead. He could feel the weight of the war pressing on him. The Verk's dominion had been hunting them for 8 long years. Entire systems were already under Verk's control, and their fleet had grown weaker with every battle. Supplies were gone, ships were destroyed, and hope was fading. Lieutenant Eric Cole, the communications officer, looked up from his console. His face was pale, and he seemed nervous. "Captain," he said carefully, "I found a signal. It's faint, but it seems human." Daniel turned sharply. "Human? You mean Earth?" Eric nodded. "Yes, sir, it's weak, but it looks like a message meant for us. Coordinates and instructions. It says to approach their orbit for repairs, that's all. No warnings, no threats, just instructions." Daniel took a deep breath. Humanity had only recently joined the stars. Earth was small and young compared to the Coalition and the Dominion. Most of the galaxy considered them too weak to matter. But every report Daniel had seen about humans spoke of one strange thing: their stubbornness. They had survived catastrophes, wars, and disasters that would have destroyed older civilizations. Somehow they kept going. "Set a course for Earth," Daniel ordered. His voice was firm, but inside he felt nervous. The Verk's fleets were still out there, and approaching a new civilization was risky. "Slow speed. We don't want to attract attention until we're close." Laura nodded and tapped the control panel. The engines rumbled, a weak echo of their former power, and the cruiser began its long journey toward the blue planet. Days passed. The stars moved slowly across the view screens, and the crew went about their work in silence. The ship groaned with every move, warning of its fragile state. Daniel walked through the corridors, checking on the crew. Some were asleep, their exhaustion deep and heavy. Others were trying to repair systems with what little equipment remained. Every face told a story of weariness and fear. He stopped at the engineering bay, where Chief Engineer Henry Collins and his assistant, Maria Lewis, were inspecting the damaged engines. Henry wiped his brow and looked up. "Captain," he said, "we can get the engines working enough to reach Earth, but the ship won't survive any battle in this state." Daniel frowned. "Do we have any other choice?" Henry shook his head. "Not unless we want to give up entirely." Daniel sighed and walked away. He could feel the weight of leadership pressing down. Every decision mattered. If they failed, it would not just be the crew of this ship who would die, but countless people in the system still resisting the Verks. Laura found him later in the observation deck. The planet grew larger on the display, bright and blue against the blackness of space. "It's beautiful," she said quietly. Daniel didn't respond at first. He was thinking about the war, the battles, and the lives lost. Finally, he said, "It's a small world. I hope they want to help us. Otherwise," he let the sentence hang in the air. Laura touched his shoulder. "They want to help, I can feel it. Humans have always been stubborn, but they also care about survival. They're not like the Verks." Daniel nodded slowly. He wanted to believe her, but he could not ignore the danger. The Verks were relentless. Their ships were fast, powerful, and brutal. Every step toward Earth was a gamble. As they approached the planet, Eric interrupted the quiet. "Captain, I'm receiving a new message." "It's direct from Earth's orbital command." Daniel stepped forward. The display filled with a holographic image of a woman in a crisp, dark uniform. She had sharp eyes and a calm, commanding presence. "I am Admiral Grace Turner," she said. "We have received your distress signal. We will assist your fleet. Hold your position in Mars orbit. Our crews will arrive shortly. Please remain calm." Daniel blinked. He had expected caution, perhaps even suspicion. He had not expected such direct action. "Understood," he said. The crew murmured among themselves. There was relief, but also disbelief. Humanity, a species considered too young to matter, had not only noticed their presence but had already organized a response. Hours later, human ships began to arrive. Small tugs, modular repair craft, and larger escort vessels moved in precise formation. It was not chaotic, but it was fast. Within minutes, human engineers had boarded the cruiser, their tools and equipment moving like extensions of their hands. Kyle Morgan, a human engineer, inspected the damaged sections of the hull. He spoke in short, clear sentences, asking questions that Henry and Maria could barely follow. "What system powers this section?" he asked. "Can it be rerouted? Are there backup lines?" Hannah Price, a systems specialist, checked the control panels. Her eyes moved quickly over unfamiliar alien technology, but she did not hesitate. "We can reinforce this. It will take a few hours, but it will hold." Daniel watched in awe. These humans were not overwhelmed by the alien systems. They adapted. They solved problems quickly, logically, without fear. "Captain," Laura said quietly, "they are fast. They work in ways we never imagined." Daniel nodded. He realized something he had not before. Humans were different. They did not panic when faced with danger. They did not wait for orders in the same way his crew had been trained. They thought, acted, and adapted. The repairs began. Crew members moved through the corridors like ants, repairing engines, rerouting power, and sealing hull breaches. The noise was constant, but it was a controlled noise, a sign of activity, not panic. Meanwhile, Daniel observed Earth from orbit. The planet below was alive with movement. Cities glittered in the night, factories glowed, and satellites moved in precise paths above. Humans had organized themselves to respond, not just to one ship, but to a fleet. Eric intercepted Verk's communications. The Dominion believed this part of space was unoccupied. They had no idea Earth was capable of such rapid mobilization. Daniel felt a small spark of hope. If humans could repair his fleet, could they also fight back? Hours turned into a cycle. The cruiser's system slowly came back online. Shields hummed at low power. Engines could move at full speed without fear of collapse. Weapons were offline, but the hull was strong. Daniel walked through the engineering bay again. Henry was exhausted but smiling. "Captain, I don't know how they do it," he said. "We've had this ship for years, and humans fixed more in hours than we could in months." Laura looked at the bridge. "It's not just the repairs. Look at them. They organize, they plan, they train. They are ready for war in ways we never expected." Daniel looked at the stars again. The Verks were out there, regrouping, unaware that the small planet below had changed the balance of power. He felt a strange mix of fear and hope. If they could survive until the repairs were complete, the next phase would be critical. Humans would not just fix their ships, they would improve them. They would prepare them for battle in ways Daniel and his crew had never imagined. As the sun rose over the Earth's horizon, the cruiser glowed with reflected light. It was no longer a drifting wreck. It was a ship restored, alive again, ready to face the dangers of the galaxy. And for the first time in years, Daniel allowed himself to imagine something he had not dared to think: victory. The human crews moved with precision, repairing systems, rerouting power, and preparing the coalition ships for their next mission. Their work was steady and methodical, yet fast and effective. Daniel watched as Kyle and Hannah discussed strategies with Henry and Maria, blending alien technology with human ingenuity. Eric intercepted another message from Verk's scouts. They were approaching the solar system, unaware that the humans had already taken action. Daniel felt the tension rise, but Laura placed a hand on his arm. "They won't break us," she said. "Not now." The cruiser moved in Mars orbit, no longer helpless. The humans had arrived not just as helpers, but as partners. And Daniel realized, as he looked around at his crew and the human engineers, that the war ahead would be different. It was no longer just about survival. It was about something more. It was about hope. For the first time in 8 years, the fleet felt alive again. The stars outside the viewport were the same, endless and cold. But inside the cruiser, there was warmth. There was life. There was a spark that had been missing for too long. Daniel Brooks took a deep breath and turned to Laura. "We are in their hands now," he said. Laura smiled faintly. "Yes, and I think they will take good care of us." The cruiser, battered and worn, was ready to move forward. The humans had restored it, strengthened it, and given it a new chance. For Daniel and his crew, approaching Earth had not been a desperate gamble. It had been the beginning of something new. Above them, the stars waited, and somewhere in the distance, the Verks were coming. But now the coalition ships were no longer helpless. Now they were ready. The human crews moved with steady purpose. The moment they arrived, they had begun their work, not wasting a single moment. Their ships hovered around the damaged cruiser, tugs and repair drones connecting to the hull at precise angles. Daniel Brooks watched from the bridge, amazed at how organized they were. Every human seemed to know exactly what to do, and no one panicked, even as the damaged sections groaned under pressure. Kyle Morgan, the lead human engineer, walked through the corridors with a portable toolkit strapped to his belt. He stopped at the engine room and examined the power conduits. "These lines are old and fragile," he said, tapping a panel. "We can replace them with stronger alloys. It will increase output by 20% and reduce the risk of failure in battle." Henry Collins, the coalition chief engineer, looked skeptical. 20%? That is a big improvement. Can you do it so quickly?" Kyle smiled. "We can, but we'll need more support. Drones, extra parts, and some temporary power reroutes." Maria Lewis, Henry's assistant, shook her head in disbelief. "They think fast, faster than we ever have." Meanwhile, Hannah Price moved through the ship's control rooms, scanning every system. She paused at the weapons array, her eyes narrowing. "These systems are fine, but the targeting logic is outdated. I can rewrite the algorithms to improve accuracy and response time. It will only take a few cycles." Daniel watched the humans work, and a strange feeling grew inside him. For years, the coalition had fought alone, relying on old tactics and old technology. Now, humans were showing them something new: speed, logic, and cleverness that no one had predicted. Laura Bennett leaned against a railing and observed quietly. "They don't just repair," she said softly. "They improve, they adapt, they see problems differently." Hours passed. The crew worked without pause. Drones carried heavy components, engineers climbed the damaged hulls, and small human vessels delivered supplies from orbit. Every repair seemed to lead to an upgrade. Hull plating was replaced with lighter, stronger materials. Shield generators were modified to cycle faster. Engines were rerouted for better efficiency. Daniel felt hope growing inside him. Slowly, the cruiser began to transform. What had once been a broken vessel now hummed with renewed power. The lights on the bridge were brighter, the life support system steady, and the engines thrummed with energy that was stronger than before. Eric Cole, the communications officer, intercepted Averk's transmission. Their ships were still regrouping far beyond Mars orbit. They had no idea that the coalition fleet was being rebuilt, repaired, and improved. Daniel allowed himself a small smile. For the first time in years, he felt that the fight ahead might not be hopeless. The humans worked quickly, but they did not rush recklessly. Kyle and Hannah moved from system to system, checking each part twice. When they encountered a section of the ship they did not understand, they studied it carefully. They asked questions, took measurements, and experimented. Within hours, they found solutions no one had thought of. Laura watched Kyle working alongside Henry. They argued at first, pointing at diagrams and discussing methods, but soon they were laughing, nodding, and collaborating. Daniel realized that humans did not see old systems as impossible. They saw them as puzzles. In the mess hall, small groups of humans and coalition crew gathered. Humans shared simple food, offering it to the coalition members. They spoke in clear, easy language, and slowly the coalition crew began to relax. The humans' calm confidence was contagious. Daniel noticed that the older officers were beginning to smile again, a rare sight after years of war. At the same time, Earth was fully engaged. Human command had mobilized factories, orbital shipyards, and asteroid processing stations to supply the coalition fleet. Raw materials were sent to orbit, where automated factories shaped them into parts for the ships. Within hours, production had scaled far beyond what the coalition could have imagined. Hannah paused on the bridge to check the sensors. "The new shields are ready for testing," she said. "We can run a simulated stress test before deployment." Laura nodded. "Do it." The shields hummed as the human modifications activated. Energy flowed smoothly, pulses were faster, and the hull appeared stronger on the displays. Daniel felt a sense of relief. For months the ship had been fragile, almost helpless. Now it was strong. It could survive battle again. Outside, smaller human craft moved like swarms around the cruiser. They repaired external damage, replaced plating, and reinforced weak points. Every drone, every small ship was guided with precise control. The coalition crew had never seen such efficiency. Kyle climbed onto a maintenance platform, checking the engine modifications. These engines can now sustain higher speeds, he explained. We can outmaneuver most Verk's ships and the heat signature is lower. That makes us harder to detect. Henry scratched his head. Faster and safer, that's impressive. I would not have believed it possible. Maria looked at Kyle. Humans don't stop at what is possible, they push further. As the day passed, Daniel walked through the corridors again. He saw humans teaching Coalition crew members how to use upgraded systems. They worked together, sharing ideas, asking questions, and testing solutions. Coalition officers were learning more in one cycle than they had in years of training. Captain, Eric said, tapping the console, I'm receiving an update from Earth. They are sending specialized weapons for integration, advanced missile systems and magnetic lances that can pierce the Dominion armor. They want us equipped before the next engagement. Daniel felt a thrill. For months, they had survived by running and hiding. Now humans were giving them tools to fight back, not just to survive, but to win. Laura appeared beside him. It will change everything. Once the fleet is fully restored and equipped, the Verks will no longer see us as easy prey. Daniel nodded. He had seen many worlds fall. He had watched fleets destroyed, but he had never seen a species respond like this, calm, smart, fast, and bold. Humans did not panic. They solved problems. They acted. In the workshops, Kyle and Hannah worked alongside Henry and Maria to integrate human technology into Coalition ships. Hulls were reinforced with new alloys. Shields were upgraded. Engines were modified to give bursts of speed. Weapons were redesigned for better accuracy and damage. Every system they touched became stronger, faster, and more reliable. Outside, drones moved like clockwork, carrying heavy components and installing them with precision. Small tugs connected to the ships, moving sections that had been damaged beyond repair. Engineers inside coordinated with those outside, using displays and sensors to guide every movement. Daniel returned to the bridge and looked out at the stars. Earth hung below, a small blue and green jewel in the darkness. It seemed calm, but the work happening in orbit was anything but calm. Humans had mobilized an entire system to repair a few ships, and the speed and organization was astounding. Eric interrupted his thoughts. Captain Verk's scouts are approaching the outer planets. They might detect us soon. Daniel took a deep breath. Let them come. We are ready. The humans have given us a chance we never had before. Laura stood beside him. And we will not waste it. Every system repaired, every weapon integrated, every upgrade completed makes us stronger. We will be ready for them. Over the next few cycles, the humans continued their work. They trained Coalition crews, improving their efficiency and knowledge. They ran simulations, showing how to maneuver in battle, how to use the new weapons, and how to survive attacks. Coalition officers learned quickly, inspired by the humans' calm and logical approach. Daniel watched one training session with awe. Human pilots moved through simulations, reacting faster than any Coalition veteran he had seen. They adjusted strategies on the fly, making decisions that seemed impossible. And Coalition officers adapted, learning not just the tactics, but the thinking behind them. Outside, the Verk's fleet began to move closer, unaware that the Coalition ships were no longer broken. They were no longer easy targets. They were stronger, faster, and smarter. And they had humans helping them, humans who seemed unstoppable. Kyle and Hannah completed their final checks on the cruiser. Everything is ready, Hannah said. Shields, engines, weapons, all systems integrated. The ship is stronger than it has ever been. Daniel felt a surge of pride. The cruiser had been broken, drifting helpless in space. Now it was alive, repaired, and equipped for war. The human crews had done more than repair a ship. They had transformed it into a vessel capable of standing against the Verks. Laura joined him on the bridge. They've done more than repair the fleet. They've given us hope. And hope is stronger than any weapon. Daniel looked out at the stars. Soon the Verks would arrive. Soon the real test would begin, but he was no longer afraid. With humans at their side, the Coalition fleet was ready to fight back. The humans continued their work late into the cycle. Even after the ships were fully repaired, they refined systems, tested weapons, and trained crews. They shared knowledge, taught new techniques, and ensured that the fleet would not just survive, it would thrive. By the time the Verk scouts reached the outer planets, the Coalition fleet had transformed completely. Broken ships were now powerful vessels. Crews were trained and confident. and humans had shown that even the smallest species could change the course of a war. Daniel knew one thing with certainty. Once the next battle began, the Verks would not expect what awaited them. The humans had restored them, equipped them, and taught them to fight in ways they had never imagined. And soon the war would change forever. The Verks fleet entered the outer planets, their massive ships casting shadows over moons and asteroids. They believed the coalition was weak, scattered, and broken. Their scouts reported damaged ships drifting in orbit around Mars, and they smiled with the confidence of a predator sure of its prey. But what the Verks did not know was that the coalition fleet had been repaired, upgraded, and trained by humans. Every ship had new shields, faster engines, improved weapons, and trained crews who had learned to think like the humans who had restored them. Captain Daniel Brooks stood on the bridge of the cruiser. His hands rested on the console as he watched the displays. The stars outside seemed calm, but he knew the Verks were approaching. Soon there would be no hiding. Laura Bennett joined him quietly. "They are coming," she said. "All of our training, all of our upgrades, it's time to see if it works." Daniel nodded. "It has to work." "We cannot fail." Eric Cole tapped the comm panel. "Captain, the scouts are sending more ships. They are moving into formation. They will strike in 3 standard cycles." Daniel swallowed hard. 3 cycles. Enough time to prepare, but not much. "All crew to stations," he ordered. "Weapons ready, shields online, engines to full power." The humans moved quickly. Kyle Morgan and Hannah Price monitored the systems from the bridge and engineering bay, adjusting shield frequencies and weapons targeting in real time. Their calm focus was contagious. Coalition officers followed their instructions without hesitation. Admiral Grace Turner's voice came over the comms. "All ships hold formation, focus fire on their lead units, use combined tactics." Humans and coalition officers coordinate and adapt. We have the advantage if we think faster than they do. Daniel looked at Laura. "They are confident, too confident, or maybe we just are." Laura smiled faintly. "Let's hope it is enough." Outside, the Verks fleet advanced. Massive capital ships glowed with weapon power, smaller attack craft swarmed around them, and energy pulses lit the void. They expected easy prey. They expected weak, damaged ships. They would be wrong. The first shots rang out in the darkness. Energy beams cut across the void, missiles streaked toward targets, and the hum of engines filled the bridge. Daniel felt the cruiser shudder as the shields absorbed the first hits. "Shields holding," Hannah called from engineering. "No damage beyond minor hull stress." Kyle adjusted the weapons targeting. "Fire at their formation gaps. Use coordinated volleys. Humans take point on evasive maneuvers." Human pilots moved with precision. Small strike craft darted in and out of the Verks lines, distracting the larger ships, forcing them to change direction and creating openings for coalition cruisers to strike. Coalition pilots, trained by humans for the first time, followed their lead. Laura called the tactical orders. "Flank the right side, keep pressure on their lead ships, target their command relays, don't let them regroup." The Verks were strong, but their formation began to falter. Their lead ships were hit repeatedly by the upgraded weapons, shields failing under the precise targeting. Missiles and energy beams struck the command units, and chaos spread through their ranks. Daniel felt a thrill of hope. For months, they had run from the Verks. For months, they had hidden, repaired, and feared the enemy. Now, for the first time, they were fighting back. Kyle monitored the engines. "We can push the cruiser faster, enough to outmaneuver their attack craft and hit the capital ships." Laura looked at him. "Do it." The cruiser surged forward. Its engines hummed stronger than ever. Shields flashed as they deflected incoming fire. The humans had improved the system so well that the ship felt alive. It moved with purpose, responding to every order, every threat. Small human strike ships darted between the larger vessels, firing pulses that disrupted the Verks shields. The coalition cruisers followed, pressing the attack, taking advantage of every opening. Daniel's heart raced. The battle was fierce, but the humans' planning and quick thinking were making all the difference. The Verks had expected easy prey, but they found a fleet that was strong, smart, and unpredictable. Laura's voice cut through the chaos. "All units, focus fire on the lead Verks flagship. Disable their command systems. This is our chance to break their formation." The humans coordinated with coalition officers, guiding the ships into positions the Verks did not anticipate. Missiles and energy beams struck in perfect timing, overwhelming the enemy shields. The flagship systems began to fail. Daniel gripped the console. "Keep firing, do not let them recover." Outside, explosions lit the void. The Verk's ships staggered, some retreating, some destroyed. Their scouts were cut off, their lines broken. The humans had turned what could have been a disaster into a controlled battle. Hannah adjusted the shield frequencies again. Incoming missiles deflected. "Their plasma weapons are less effective now. We have the advantage," Kyle grinned. "Let's push them further, engines at maximum, flank their left side." The cruiser and its allied ships surged forward, hitting the Verks with coordinated attacks. Smaller ships carried out precise strikes, while the larger cruisers fired volleys that pierced shields and armor. The Verk's fleet, confident at first, was now struggling to regroup. Laura watched the display. "Their formation is breaking, keep pressure on them." "Human pilots guide the coalition ships into the gaps." Daniel allowed himself a small smile. "We've never had this chance, let's make it count." The humans' planning and training were evident in every move. Coalition officers followed their instructions, learning quickly, adapting faster than they ever could alone. The Verks were strong, but they could not match the combination of upgraded ships and coordinated tactics. Eric intercepted a Verk's transmission. Panic was clear in their voices. "They did not expect this. We are losing, formation broken." Daniel's heart lifted. The Verks were not invincible. The humans had shown them that the coalition fleet could fight back, could win, and could survive. Kyle monitored the weapons. "We can disable their capital ships completely. Focus all fire on their engines and command modules. We can stop them here." Laura gave the order. "Do it!" The ships surged. Missiles, energy beams, and magnetic lances fired in unison, striking the lead Verk's vessels. Shields collapsed under the coordinated attack. Engines failed. Command systems were destroyed. The Verk's flagship slowed and chaos spread across their fleet. Daniel felt a surge of triumph. For months they had survived by hiding. Now they were fighting back. The humans had transformed the battle, showing the coalition that victory was possible. Small Verks attack ships tried to escape, but human strike craft intercepted them, forcing them back into the path of coalition fire. The larger ships were disabled, drifting helplessly in the void. Laura's voice was calm but strong. "Keep pressure on the remaining ships. Do not let them regroup. Focus on disabling their engines and weapons. We can win this cycle." The coalition and human forces pressed the attack, pushing the Verk's fleet into retreat. One by one, enemy ships were destroyed or disabled. Their scouts were gone, their formation broken, and their confidence shattered. Daniel felt relief and pride. The cruiser, once weak and damaged, now moved with strength and purpose. Shields flashed, engines hummed, and weapons fired with precision. The humans had not just repaired the ships, they had transformed them into fighting machines capable of standing against the Verks. Kyle and Hannah continued their work, monitoring systems, adjusting shields, and ensuring weapons fired at optimal efficiency. The coalition officers followed their instructions, learning to think and act with speed and confidence. Eric watched the Verks retreat. "They are pulling back, the fleet is broken, they won't regroup quickly." Laura nodded. "We've done it. For the first time, we are not just surviving, we are winning." Daniel took a deep breath. The stars outside were calm again, but the memory of the battle remained vivid. The Verks had been powerful, but they had underestimated humans. They had not expected a small species to repair, equip, and lead a fleet with such speed and intelligence. The humans moved among the coalition crew, checking systems, giving advice, and ensuring the ships were ready for the next engagement. They trained pilots, guided engineers, and coordinated strategies. Every action strengthened the fleet further. Daniel realized something important. The Verks had not just underestimated their ships, they had underestimated the human spirit. Their quick thinking, adaptability, and calm confidence had turned a fleet that once drifted helpless in space into a force capable of changing the course of a war. As the last Verks ships disappeared beyond the outer planets, Daniel looked at Laura. "We survived. We fought back." "And we won?" Laura smiled. "Yes, and this is just the beginning. Humans have shown us what is possible. The war will never be the same." Daniel allowed himself a small moment of hope. For months, they had survived by luck and hiding. Now, with humans at their side, the coalition fleet was stronger, smarter, and ready. The battle had ended, but the war was far from over. Yet one thing was clear: the humans had changed everything. The coalition had been restored, equipped, and prepared. And the Verks would never underestimate them again. The stars outside were calm, but inside the fleet, energy and purpose surged. The humans had shown that even a small, young species could tip the balance of war, and Daniel knew that the next battle would be different. The fleet, once broken, now stood ready. The humans had restored them, equipped them, and taught them to fight. And with that, the war had changed forever. The Verk's retreat was slower than Daniel had expected. Their ships limped back toward deep space, damaged and disorganized. Yet even in retreat, the enemy was dangerous. Daniel knew that they would not give up easily. They would return with more ships, more firepower, and more determination. But the coalition fleet was no longer the same. Once broken and helpless, it was now repaired, equipped, and trained by humans. Every ship had been upgraded. Every officer and pilot had learned new tactics. Every engineer had absorbed knowledge that had once seemed impossible. Captain Daniel Brooks stood on the bridge of the cruiser. He felt a mixture of relief, pride, and caution. The battle had been won, but the war was far from over. He looked at Commander Laura Bennett, who was watching the displays quietly. "They'll be back," Daniel said softly. Laura nodded. "Yes, but we will be ready. Humans have changed everything. They've shown us that we can fight, and more than that, we can win." Eric Cole, the communications officer, looked up from his console. "Captain, Admiral Grace Turner is sending new orders. She wants to coordinate a counteroffensive against the Verks. Human ships and coalition ships will strike together, reclaiming lost systems." Daniel's eyes widened. "Reclaiming? That is bold." Laura smiled faintly. "Bold, yes, but humans have always been bold. And now we can follow their lead." The next days were a flurry of activity. Humans continued to train the coalition crews. They ran simulations, practiced maneuvers, and taught new strategies. Engineers worked alongside humans, integrating new systems, testing weapons, and preparing ships for long campaigns. Kyle Morgan and Hannah Price moved among the crews constantly. Kyle inspected engines, reinforced hulls, and upgraded shields. Hannah adjusted weapons, tested targeting systems, and coordinated with pilots. Their energy never faltered, and the coalition crew found themselves keeping pace with humans, learning faster than ever. Captain Ryan Clark, a human officer assigned to coordinate strike groups, trained coalition pilots in new tactics. "Don't follow old routines," he told them. "Think ahead, adapt, be unpredictable. The Verks expects patterns, break them." Daniel watched one of these training sessions. Pilots dodged imaginary attacks, targeted weak points, and moved in formations he had never imagined. The humans made it look easy, but Daniel knew it was not. They had trained the coalition fleet to be better than it had ever been. Laura joined him on the bridge. "Look at them," she said quietly. "They are learning, adapting, growing. Soon they will be ready to strike anywhere the Verks are, and they will do it together." Daniel nodded. "It is strange," he said. "We came here for repairs, not for training or strategy, yet humanity has done both and more." Outside the cruiser, the repaired fleet moved like a single organism. Ships glided through orbit, formations tight and precise. Human strike craft darted among them, guiding them, testing them, preparing them. Every ship, once battered and weak, now gleamed with new strength and purpose. Eric interrupted Daniel's thoughts. "Captain, I am picking up Verk's communications again. They are reacting to the counteroffensive plans. Their tone is fear, confusion. They did not expect this. They did not expect humans to change the game." Daniel allowed himself a small smile. "Good, let them worry. Let them realize they cannot win as easily anymore." Admiral Turner's voice came over the comms. "All fleets prepare for coordinated strikes. Target systems occupied by Verks cut supply lines and reclaim territory. Coalition and human units will act together. Do not underestimate them. The element of surprise is ours." Laura leaned forward. "This is it, the first step toward changing the war completely." The fleets moved out. Humans guided coalition cruisers into key positions, teaching them how to strike without exposing themselves to danger. Strike craft darted ahead, locating targets and marking weaknesses. Weapons fired with precision, shields held under fire, and engines responded like never before. Daniel piloted his cruiser alongside the human formations. He felt the difference immediately. The ship moved as if alive, responding to his thoughts, to his decisions, and to the human strategies. It was no longer just a repaired vessel. It was a new weapon, stronger and smarter than before. The first target was a Verks mining station in a nearby system. It had been used to supply the Dominion fleet, and humans had identified it as vulnerable. Coalition ships approached quietly using new evasive maneuvers. Strike craft darted ahead, distracting patrols. Then, with perfect coordination, the fleet struck. Shields held, weapons fired, and explosions lit the system. The mining station was destroyed before the Verk's defenders could organize. Coalition and human crews cheered quietly in the comms, but Daniel remained focused. This was only the beginning. The humans taught Coalition crews to think in new ways. They learned to anticipate enemy moves, to adapt tactics quickly, and to act with confidence. Every system reclaimed became another lesson, every victory another step forward. Kyle and Hannah worked tirelessly. They moved from ship to ship, making adjustments, improving weapons, and reinforcing shields. Engineers who had once been slow and cautious now worked with speed and precision, guided by human example. Captain Ryan Clark led small groups of ships on rapid strikes. "Move fast," he ordered. "Hit and retreat, use their fear against them, make them doubt their own strength." The Verks were shocked. They had expected easy prey, damaged ships, and panicked crews. Instead, they faced an organized, smart, and confident force. Coalition ships moved like one mind, coordinated by humans who had transformed them. Daniel watched the fleet's progress in awe. Systems once lost to the Verks were being reclaimed. Supply lines were disrupted. Patrols were destroyed. The Dominion had underestimated humans, and now they were paying the price. Laura joined him on the bridge. "They said humanity was primitive, that we couldn't help. They were wrong. We've changed everything, Daniel." Daniel nodded. "Yes, they didn't just repair our ships. They've given us the power to change the war, and we're going to use it." Over the next cycles, the Coalition fleet and human forces continued their campaign. Every victory brought more confidence. Every system reclaimed gave hope to occupied worlds. Coalition officers, trained by humans, acted with decisiveness and skill that would have been impossible before. Verk's communications became desperate, chaotic. They could not understand how a small species could transform an entire fleet, rebuild shattered ships, and fight with intelligence and courage. Fear replaced confidence, confusion replaced strategy. Kyle and Hannah coordinated upgrades while the fleet moved. New shield configurations, faster engines, improved weapons. Every system became more advanced than the Verks could predict. Coalition engineers had learned to innovate, inspired by human methods. Daniel realized that humans had done more than restore ships. They had restored confidence, strategy, and hope. For the first time, the Coalition fleet was not just fighting to survive, they were fighting to win. Strike groups led by Captain Ryan Clark moved deep into Verk's territory. Small attacks, sabotage missions, and precise strikes disrupted supply lines and command structures. The Dominion was forced into retreat, unable to regroup effectively. Laura watched a simulation of the Verk's response. "They are in chaos." "They underestimated humans, and now they pay for it." Daniel smiled faintly. "We didn't just fight back, we taught them fear. That is something they have never experienced before." Earth continued to support the Coalition. Factories and shipyards worked day and night to supply more ships, drones, and equipment. Humans coordinated production, logistics, and strategy with calm efficiency. The Coalition had never experienced support like this before. As the campaign progressed, the Coalition reclaimed system after system. Occupied worlds cheered as Verk's forces withdrew. Resistance movements gained confidence, joining the combined fleet in their efforts. Daniel reflected on the journey. They had approached Earth as desperate survivors. They had asked for repairs. Instead, they found partners, teachers, and allies. Humans had restored their fleet, equipped them for battle, and taught them to fight in ways they never imagined. Laura joined him on the bridge. "We've changed the balance. The war will never be the same. Humans have made sure of that." Daniel nodded. "Yes, and I think this is only the beginning. With humans at our side, we can take back everything the Verks stole. We can change the fate of the galaxy." The stars stretched endlessly around them, calm and bright. Yet within the fleet, energy and purpose pulsed like a heartbeat. The humans had shown that even a young, small species could have a powerful impact on a war. Coalition officers and crews now moved with confidence, acting decisively and courageously. Engineers worked quickly and creatively. Pilots executed maneuvers that had once been impossible. The Verks, once feared, now hesitated at the first sign of human-guided ships. Daniel realized the truth of it. Humanity had not just repaired ships, they had restored hope. They had given purpose. They had changed the war forever. As the combined fleet moved deeper into Verks-controlled space, Daniel felt a quiet sense of pride. They had survived, they had fought back, and they had learned from humans how to become stronger. The war was far from over, but now the coalition had an edge no one could ignore. And humanity, once considered too small to matter, had become the turning point. Daniel turned to Laura. "We came here for repairs," he said. "Instead, we found a way to win." Laura smiled. "Yes, and we will because humans showed us how." Above them, the stars waited, endless and silent. But below, the fleet moved with purpose, alive with energy and guided by humans. The Verks would not forget this day. The war had changed forever.